So thank you so much for doing this. You've got an interesting story. A lot of people were excited to have you come on, and I honestly, had not heard of you prior to this. I looked up, because there's so many people. I looked you up, and you got interesting stuff. And so, if you'd be so kind, can you just kind of give everybody a little bit a brief story about your background and what you came through and where you're at today, type of thing, so we can kind of start from there.
Yeah, sure. So actually, before the whole vegan thing happened, so I was already a personal trainer and a health coach, and kind of started to build my online fitness business. And I don't know so I actually watched. I have cancer in my family. My dad had colon cancer. My aunt in Poland had breast cancer, and of course, I watched Forks Over Knives, and I remember watching it 3 times, and I'm like, wow, this is the answer to it all. I can help my dad. I can spread the message. This is the way to eat. I don't know. I got sucked into that whole entire community, I guess. And I started eating, I changed my diet to a vegan diet. And it's funny because when I first went vegan, and I talk about this, there's still recordings of me when I was a vegan coach speaking, that I had no idea how to do it. I went from eating a pretty healthy diet to eating vegan junk. And because it said vegan, so I thought it was healthy for me. And then, I don't know, it just started to transition. I was like, okay, I'm vegan now, so I'm going to change my whole entire brand. I went from having an online fitness business to being a vegan health coach and influencer. I started to, follow all the vegan community pages. I started to attend all the meetings, all the events. And I guess that's kind of how people started to hear about me. I myself, actually, the first 3 months hired a vegan coach to help me, because I felt like if I'm going to be still in a fitness and I'm so caught up myself in this vegan, world, and this is how I'm eating, this is what I'm doing, this is what I believe, then I should be teaching this to others. So I hired a vegan coach. He actually was my bikini competition coach as well. So he helped me become a vegan athlete, and I stepped on stage as a vegan bikini competitor probably within the first year. And then it just kind of blew up from there. And, I spoke at Seafood and Wine with Rich Roll, Bad as a Vegan. I mean, you couldn't tell me anything. And I was so into this world. I was sucked in. And I was very closed-minded to anything else. My friends would try to debate me. People try to debate me, and it was like, you were attacking me. If you came to talk to me about anything other than veganism, I mean, I would just attack back. So about a year and a half into being a vegan myself, and at this point, I was a full-time online vegan coach. I had about 50 clients, recurring clients that I was working with that were all vegan. I was pretty sucked into the world, and that veganism became my identity. I was what was known as misfit vegan. So about a year and a half in, actually not even about a year and a half in, about a year and a half in, that's when I started to realize something was wrong. But a few months into going vegan, my periods became my menstrual cycle just started to completely go up and down. So a lot of vegans try to tell me that this was because of my bikini competition, but I didn't actually do my bikini competition till about a year in. And my actual competition was done, even though it was vegan. I can say, being a health coach, it was done in a healthy manner. I didn't push past any kind of crazy limits. But within 3 months of being vegan, that's when I realized my cycle was just it kind of went from, I mean, I used to have crazy cramps. So it went from cramps and having like, you know, long cycles to pretty much nothing, which I thought was weird. But then I would Google things about this, and I would find articles that said that, you know, if you were vegan, then that means that after your body's cleansed of the torture of the animals, and you're not eating the stress and all that meat that comes from, you know, the animals being killed. So your body's cleansed. So it means that even if you spot as a woman, like on a menstrual cycle, that's a great thing. So I was like, wow, like this is great. Like you know, I'm no longer going to be like, I'm not going to be going through this pain. And about a year and a half in, like my menstrual cycle just came to a halt. There was nothing after that. And this was even after reverse dieting out of my competition. That was into going into my regular most balanced, I mean, vegan diet there was. I supplemented with everything on the planet to make sure that I got my B12, that I got my DHEA, like everything. I was like, you know, doing protein shakes, trying to make sure that I had my muscle on me. And I went to Poland to visit my family, and my cousin, I don't remember how we got into the topic, but she mentioned that she remembers that I used to have, you know, painful periods. And I don't know, we just got in that topic. She's a psychologist. So she was very interested on actually speaking to me about my vegan diet. She's the one that had breast cancer and ended up actually going back to me. She went plant-based for a little bit when she went going through chemotherapy, because that's what her doctor said would probably be best. And then she ended up going back to me. So she wanted to talk to me about that and see how I was feeling. And I told her, you know, I'm like, yeah, you know, my periods are like pretty much like not gone, and they're not. And she's like, wait, what? that's not good, Daria. Like something is off, something's imbalanced. And I almost didn't want to pin it on the diet itself. But I took her advice. She's like, listen, I'm gonna make us some scrambled eggs next morning. Like, just have some, you know, see how you feel, see how your body responds. You know, maybe it's something that you need. I mean, who knows? She's like, just give it a chance. And till this day, I swear, I'm like, I don't know whether it was mind body connection. I don't know what it was, but I ended up having a lot of eggs because I remember it was so good that she just kept making them. And a few days later, my period came back. I got my period, and it was like, I wanted to be like, okay, either this is the crazy coincidence or maybe she's right. But at that point, I was so sucked into the vegan identity that I went back to full plant-based diet after that. I did have, like, that was pretty much midway through, and then I'm like, okay, I got my period. That's great. Let's just get back into it. Now I'm sure everything will be fine. Went back to being plant-based, and same thing happened. It's like next month kind of came, not really. Then after that, I just stopped menstruating. And I realized, I went to Costa Rica with one of my friends. This was about another year in after that. And she's like, literally all my friends are just trying to get back to eating animals. And she was like, why don't you have some fish? If you're gonna have some fish, have it here. It's Costa Rica. It's great. You know, you're gonna love it. And I did. And I remember I had some fish. I ended up having eggs again for breakfast. I don't know, like something switched in Costa Rica for me. And when I went back home, still as a vegan, having my Instagram being Misfit Vegan, and I didn't even know what carnivore was back then. I didn't even know that was a thing. But I basically ate nothing but steak, chicken down to the bones. I remember getting a rotisserie chicken from Whole Foods, and my roommate was like, what are you doing? Because I couldn't explain to her why I was chewing the bones. I was literally every single drumstick, everything I ate, I would get down to the bones and try to chew as much of it as I could. I was having eggs, fish, and it's like my body couldn't get enough for like the first 2 weeks. And I can't, it's so funny because when I go back to that time, I wasn't even, I mean, I tried keto as a vegan. I tried vegan keto because I wanted to try it because some of my clients were asking me about it. And I remember feeling great on keto as a vegan. However, I was eating pretty much processed meat and tofu and protein shakes in order to supplement and get enough protein every single day. It was to the point where I was so sick of it that I couldn't continue vegan keto. But yeah, after that carnivore experience, this is where this dark period, I guess, in my life hit. It was because now I was going from having clients who relied on me to teach them how to be vegan, to now me having this crisis, like, I've been vegan for 3 years and now I'm literally without any remorse. I mean, I had remorse, but like not, my body just not, I don't know. I was just eating nothing but meat. So, yeah, I made a post. I remember making a post saying that I was no longer vegan. And I mean, I'm sure pretty much everyone knows what happened next, but it was like, I mean, I lost pretty much all of my clients. I was called, I mean, from murder to people telling me that I need to go die, like, people were telling me like, this person went vegan because of you, my wife went vegan because of you. Now they're going to question their beliefs. Like, you are selfish, you're vain, you're doing this because, you just want to, like, you're following trends, the eating meat or keto is a trend now, so that's what you're doing. And I mean, I think I lost like 5,000 followers within the first month or so. I mean, I pretty much like went dark off social media for a little bit because it was such a negative backlash that I even tell vegans so this day, I'm like, if you want to promote what you do, if you want to lead by example, whatever it is, you telling me to go die and I'm a murderer and that you hate me and that I like is never gonna bring me back to your community. So I don't know what people are trying to accomplish with that. As a vegan community, I speak I try to speak to them in that way. Like, that is not a way that you will bring someone back into whatever you're trying to do. So yeah, and I mean, kind of like make the long story short, I myself actually, when I stepped away from social media, I started to dabble more into keto, and then from keto dabbling into more vegan keto. I mean, I'm sorry, vegan keto. No, not that. Keto carnivore, and then I started to study more of your Instagram, Sean, and with Dr. Paul Saladino, and I got his book, and I started to kind of really see the different side of quote unquote diets, lifestyles. And the one thing I noticed was that when I was opening my mind to being a non-vegan, I realized that like the different kind of worlds that they were, I mean, I felt like it was more open-minded, and I felt like even though I was transitioning from a community that was shunning me, like, and completely shaming me and doing all this stuff, like I was kind of going into something that was more open-minded, and it was less labeling and more just like, hey, if this works, then it's great. Like doing something for your body, doing something that's going to heal you, doing something that, ultimately, like whatever works for you, whether it's full carnivore, whether it's keto carnivore, I don't know. And I started to feel so great. And I will say, I told it, I said this on another podcast, and it's very true. Because of the mental battle that I had in my head. Like, I will even say that going keto and going more carnivore, like, helped me through that, because I felt like I had more clarity and I had more, it's like my body was balancing out, and I was, no matter of like how much what I was going through when it came to that mental struggle, like, I was able to deal with it more. I feel like because I felt like my body was more balanced, it was more clear headed. I actually, when I was vegan, I would deal with more anxiety. I would deal with a lot of, I would actually even have a lot of binge episodes, and I couldn't understand why, because I was an athlete and I was healthy and I was fit, and I would have moments where I would just binge. So that went away. It was, and yeah, and then after about 6 months of me going away, I was like, I gotta speak up, and I wanted to get back on social media. I want to rebrand, and whatever happens, and I still have people on my social media that are vegan that still get these stragglers that say one thing or another, but yeah, this is where I'm at. Took a whole 20 minutes, but that's where I'm at today.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's good. And I think there's a good lesson there. I mean, not just, whether it's vegan or not, but I think, us in this carnivore community, we have people that sometimes also, can fall into this is the only way. And so I think we do have to be very mindful what we're trying to do, why we pursue this. And again, obviously with veganism, there is a ideologic part of that where, the belief for some is I'm going to not harm animals. When you really look at it, we still see that animals are harmed regardless of our choice of dietary, sustenance. It just happens. It's just part of the way food is produced. And I know people don't want to believe that. They're going to say it's unintentional. Well, it's not really. I mean, they spray pesticides and they kill animals intentionally to grow crops. I mean, that just happens. And so, but I mean, I do think, the point that you said that, I was not feeling good. I lost my period. Things are not going right. And then people just say, well, that's normal. That's supposed to be that way. Well, that doesn't really jive. And I think we run the danger of with any sort of dietary thing. And that's why I always tell people be dogmatic about having good health. And so, so I think there's a good lesson in that. So when what compelled you to become vegan when you were already doing fitness, you're already doing health coaching? Did you have some health issues you were struggling with that you thought veganism or health with, or was this more a desire to take an ethical stance or a environmental stance? What was a driving factor?
So it was health first and foremost. So it wasn't necessarily about my health. I mean, it was, but my dad was actually my dad had colon cancer, and he's been in remission for a little while. But then it was one of those things where I think someone sent me the link to Forks Over Knives, or maybe I saw on Netflix. And that resonated so much with me because I was watching, I mean, now when I look back and when I hear about how these documentaries are made to kind of really change the perspective, or they're made really in a certain way to really get you to think this is the only way. I was watching like the graphs of the mice or whatever eating casein or whatever it was, and like turning on like cancer cells, and I was like, wow, like I literally believed that is like why my dad got sick, and I believe that's why my aunt got sick. And it's so crazy when I speak to other vegans. That was a documentary that changed a lot of other people's opinions, and they went vegan because of it as well. Just like Game Changers is changing people's minds and lifestyles today, because it's made so well, but it's not really true science. So it's insane. But yeah, it was more to lead by example for my family, which never really helped because my dad would just laugh at me and tell me that I was eating rabbit food. And so he never really he followed suit. And yeah, and then it first it started as health, but I again, I think every vegan can actually like relate to this, or former vegan and everything. Once you get kind of sucked into the community, it's very hard to get out. I mean, you're labeled a vegan. I labeled myself a vegan. I put vegan, in my Instagram name. I made my whole life about veganism. I mean, my bio was about veganism. My coaching was about veganism. I was a vegan athlete. And that part kind of kept me in there. And a lot of it was, the ethics came like second, but I almost felt compelled to be an ethical vegan because of all the things that I was seeing, all the things that I was consuming, going on, I mean, watching Earthlings, and don't get me wrong, that's still, all that stuff still touches me, but it's like, it was like adding fuel to the fire for me to stay vegan. So the ethics came second, and was more for health first and foremost.
Yeah. And so did you notice a health improvement initially and then it got sort of worse, or what was it? Because I've seen a lot of people that, say that they do get healthier, at least initially.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a period of time, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 18 months, maybe for some people it's longer than that, but many people do see that they, maybe when they get rid of the junk food. And you certainly said if you start out eating vegan junk food, and there's a lot of stuff in the store. We go to the store now and we see made with plant food or plant powered or, plant proteins. And I look at the product and it's just junk food. And I mean, it's just, it's just greenwashing or health washing, this stuff. So it's very easy to get sucked into that. And the food companies certainly know that. They want to prey on people's, I guess, ignorance as to what actually makes a difference. So did you notice some improvement initially, and then kind of, then you kind of get into this sort of state of denial after that, perhaps?
So I guess I already ate healthy before going vegan. So I actually, it's funny because that was it's so hard to admit right now, but that was like my pitch. That was my story when I would get vegan clients. I'd be like, I understand where you're at, because the first 3 months I didn't know what I was doing, and I put on weight, and I mean, I spoke about it. It was true. I went from, a pretty balanced diet at that time. I was in keto. I wasn't really counting macros, but I knew what a healthy diet was, and I ate a healthy diet. And then when I went vegan, and at first it was just like, I decided this day I'm going to cut like all animal products out of my diet. I was going to educate myself, because I always, if I'm going to do something, I want to do it right. But because I didn't really educate myself till that point, when I cut everything out, I just cut the meat, I cut the eggs, I cut the fish, I cut basically just that food group. And it came down to veggie burgers and lots of salads with fake meat. I actually was it was almost like I was oh wow, like I want to try all the vegan junk too. Like it was like okay to do that now because it was vegan. So it's crazy how my perception got so skewed as well. It's because I had vegan on the package. It was healthier, like no matter whether, it was like still, I don't know, a cookie or whatever, like because it had vegan in the package, automatically to me, I was like, it's better for me. So I was almost like a happy vegan the first 3 months. I just wanted to try all the vegan foods, and I actually didn't feel better. I put on weight. I felt actually like, I don't think I necessarily was losing muscle because I've had like some muscle in my frame, but I felt more like deflated. And that's kind of what, kind of initiated the fact of finding someone to really kind of get me into this, to almost kind of like mentor me and tell me, because I at that point was just a regular trainer and regular fitness coach. I wasn't teaching anyone to go to be vegan until after my competition. But when I hired the actual coach, that's when they were like, I mean, they just basically help me with the macros and like how to do it, how to get my protein and how to supplement. But I will tell you that there was a point in time as when I was competing, I was probably eating about 2.5 bags of Beyond Meat chicken strips, those a day. And I don't even know how I was able to stomach it at some point, but I was just so determined and so disciplined. So yeah, it was a lot of that, a lot of tofu, a lot of tempeh, I probably did 2 protein shakes a day. So I guess like when I actually got to like a good lean body, I felt good. I think maybe I felt good because of, at the end of the day, I was eating like a pretty healthy diet, I guess. I don't know, with some fake meat. But it wasn't until I actually realized that something was imbalanced when it came to like the overall picture. And I was also, I was so excited I was doing that competition. I'm very positive person as well. So even if at some point I didn't feel well, I never jotted it as maybe this is why. It was not until things really got to a point where I was like, okay, I gotta change.
When when we talk about the ethical side, because so many people sort of, they talk about it, vegan for the animals. I mean, was there a point where you thought that, well, animals are not going to die? There's no animals that are dying because of my diet. Was that ever, did you actually believe that at some point, that you're like, I'm eating guilt-free? Because I hear so many people say, I'm eating a guilt-free plate, compassion, no suffering on my meal. Do you think there are people that actually believe that there's no animal suffering at all that occurs when they eat their food? And did you believe that?
Yeah, there's a meme I still remember that said going vegan saves this many animal lives, like this many gallons of water, like this, I forget what the actual meme was, but yeah, like I used to believe that. Like I believe that,
Yeah,
that I actually was not harming. I mean, in my eyes, I wasn't harming any animal, because my diet was free of animals.
yeah, okay. And I mean, and I can see superficially where you might think that's true, but then when you really look into, like, ask anyone that raises food, they'll tell you differently. But there's, as you probably know, I've been a big proponent of regenerative agriculture, and certainly if you're opposed to the conditions that certain animals live in, and certainly there's situations where it's just not acceptable. I think we do have to change that. I think particularly when we look at, primarily chickens and pigs, particularly, there's a lot of problems and things we can work with. And then, you can look at that as being a problem and say, okay, let's fix that. You don't have to go vegan to fix that. You can support, all this regenerative stuff that's going on. I mean, we see these guys that I've interviewed so many now, time and time and time again. I mean, I literally probably once or twice a month, I have a regenerative agriculture person I've interviewed either here or on different podcasts. And I know it's happening and we're seeing people making a difference. I mean, I just wonder if you could get some of the, I mean, obviously you're not part of the community anymore, but if some of the people in the community could just kind of say, wait a minute, maybe we should change our priority and support what these guys are doing, realizing that it's very unlikely that the world is going to stop eating meat. I mean, it's just, if anything, we're probably going to eat more of it. I mean, based on the prosperity of these, formerly third world countries that are developing wealth, it's going to happen. And so we can say, should we try to bang our heads against the wall and try to eliminate that and call everybody else a murderer and an evil person and start hating on the people? Or can we work together to improve that process? And that's what I think would be more helpful. But I know there's people that would disagree with that and saying it's not a solution. You can't feed people that way. And I think the data is clearly showing more and more that you can, particularly if you manage it in the way that some people are managing it, particularly when they do stack type enterprise where they have multiple animals of different types, all using the same grounds for different reasons. And there's plenty of space for that. So what are your thoughts on sort of changing vegans changing their efforts to that way? Do you think that could ever happen?
Uh, I would, I would love for vegans to even be open to that idea, but I think I okay, so when I said I was no longer vegan, no one cared what the reason was. Like, no one cared about my health. No one cared about anything that I had to say. I literally was nervous to even post anything to kind of contradict why, or to give anything, because didn't matter what I said. The backlash of like the very, very ethical vegans, it didn't matter what it was. It was, I was eating animals, therefore I was now contributing to what's wrong with the world. And it's as difficult as that is for me to say, because I wish there were some vegans that were more open-minded to that. There's a lot that are just so stuck and so like religious in it that they have not even a little wink into what the truth is. And even because when I lost my clients, a lot of my clients were friends, and because I had them for a little while, I mean, I had the clients that I had that stopped working with me, I had some of them completely block me, like, and did not want to hear anything that I had to say. So like, and like I've, now that I've been doing more research, like on Beyond Me and all the fake meat and what it actually takes to make some of those patties, and how that's destroying the environment so much more than anything else. I don't understand how they believe that the solution to saving the planet is with all this fake meat substitutions. Like, I when I was vegan, I believed it just because I knew that I wasn't eating any animals. A lot of vegans don't care about the true science. They're stuck in their, and I was one of those people, so I get it. They're stuck in their view, and no matter what you said, they feel attacked. So I wish that conversation could happen. I'm sure there are some of them that could potentially have that, conversation, but it's so difficult to have conversations with most of the community, because it's like you're attacking their belief system. So I mean, I wish, I wish, but
Well, I mean, I think, and again, I don't know. I mean, you see people like, I'll just some of these vegan influencers, like, what is it, Freely the Banana Girl, and they're just, I think they'd rather cut their arms and legs off than eat animal products. It's just, some people are so zealot-like about that they've gone beyond all reason. And then there's some people that are maybe, in the background that aren't. I will tell you, as someone who, again, and I had no intention to become an influencer or be a social media person. Believe me, that just kind of spontaneously happened. And now I feel that there is some pressure there to, say certain things or not say certain things. And, whenever I say something controversial, it always pisses off people. And, but I think it's important for people to not be dogmatic and say, look, hey, I'll just put this in the concept of a carnivore diet. Paul Saladino came out the other day and said, I'm eating honey. And some people are going to get pissed off by that. And I'm like, I don't care. If it works for him, it works for him. I think that's how it should be. We want to ultimately foster health. We want to foster good physical health and mental health. And just because we have such a problem, there's a lot of problems in society, but I tend to focus on health. And I think we have, I just saw a statistic that a new study shows that 42% of the American population is clinically obese. That's BMI 30 plus. Not just overweight, but clinically obese, 42%, 46% of people over 40. I mean, this is a huge problem. This is
Yeah.
half our population is, obese, and many of those obese people are having multiple medical issues that go with that. It's not that obesity isn't necessarily always, this issue, but it often is, very often is. And so we've got these issues that we need to fix. And sometimes the fighting, the dogmatism is not the right place to go. And the continually, well, let me ask you, so you've added animal foods back in your diet to a large degree. What has that done for your health? Better, worse, the same, you think?
Much better. Okay, so the one thing, so I used to, before going vegan, and as a teenager, I always dealt with very painful menstrual cycles. That's why when I kind of went vegan, that was a great thing for me. I didn't care what that meant, whether my hormones were unbalancing. I was like, I no longer have, cramps. Now that I am, that my diet basically is animal based, I have everything's on track, and I no longer have painful periods. So I don't know whether it's like it because of the low inflammation. I do actually follow cyclical keto. Most of the time I get like I bounce back and forth into being able to burn glucose, to burn fat very easy now. I like track my ketones, and within a day I can be back into in ketosis. So I do it for performance reasons, but especially like around my cycle, I just go pure keto, and it's just a breeze, and it's very regular. I feel great. Honestly, just my feeling wise, this is what I tell my clients now. Like this whole entire emotional cravings that I used to have when I was not even vegan, but even when I used to have a lot more like junk and I guess like processed foods in my diet, I would get these cravings, and whether it was a physical craving or emotional craving, they both piled on top of each other. Especially if I would allow myself to have more of these like carb heavy or processed foods. And now I'm almost like subtracted at least that whole physical craving part out. So I will still sneak in. Don't hate me. I don't hate me for this. I will still sneak in some like keto snacks here and there within my diet. But I do notice that when I do, I don't feel as good, especially if one leads to another day and another day. And like, I can tell that no matter whether it's keto or whatever it is, like foods that are very highly palatable kind of, leave you not to feel that great. So when I stick to really like keto carnivore and eat whole foods, I'm eating 1 to 2 meals a day. I'm with fasting at at the same time, using it as a tool. I'm not hungry like ever. Like I'm eating. I don't really track macros unless I'm really dieting things in, and I really like I'm gonna cut or something. But I'm no longer track. I calorie cycle, so I eat more on some days than others. I just pay attention to my body. I've become like very in tune with my body. So like there's days that I actually do feel like I crave like a sweet potato or rice. I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to like have a little carb up. But I've just felt the one word that I can say is much more balanced within me when it comes to like my mind, my body, my spirit, my like just I've become much more tapped in. My workouts, it's so fun because like, oh, you need carbs to put on muscle. Like I've put on more muscle since I just went back to meat than when I was a vegan eating carbs. I do have like 150 grams like every 2 weeks when I do my carb ups, but I mean that's not really heavy. To me it's not really like a huge deal, but I've put on more muscle. Like I feel stronger. I just have much more energy. I don't know. It's I don't know. It's insane. It's insane to me because I feel like when I listen to vegan people, like the vegan propaganda now, and then I kind of look back to how I felt and to how I feel now, I'm just like, there's some kind of disconnect, because I don't think that's the case, especially as an athlete. But yeah, no, I feel amazing.
What are your plans for competing? Are you have any more competition plans coming up?
No, so I was going to do a second competition after the first one. And I realized that actually I really wanted to do it just to prove myself that I could. And it kind of did help me in the vegan space, in the vegan community. But I just don't think that's like something that I'm very interested in anymore. Like I love to be fit. I love to, have muscle on me. I love to feel like I'm doing things right for my body. But I guess like the whole idea of stepping on stage, and I just not for me anymore.
Yeah, I mean that's fair enough. I know a lot of women that do it, and it says they like it for a while, and then that tends to mess them up, particularly getting super lean. When you get because
Hmm.
for a fitness competitor, I mean you get into this with sub 15% body fat range, and a lot of times, and that tends to cause hormonal issues
Yeah.
for a lot of people. I do
Yeah.
know.
I'm not trying to have any more of those.
Yeah, I do know there's some people that have done this sort of a carnivore style, and they say it's easier and they feel better. But I don't know. I mean, again, obviously you do
Hmm.
what you enjoy and that sort of
Hmm.
stuff. Do you still have there are, and I don't know if today in our group, but I know in this community that I sort of participate in, there are a lot of ex-vegans. There are a lot of people that were former vegans. I suspect we even have some here. Do you find former vegans now sort of gravitate towards your message, or talk to you and say, yes, the same thing happened to me as well? Or what
Hmm.
is your and then I guess, I mean, there's a lot. We had a guy on, his name was Liam, I can't remember how to say his last name, Bothe or something like that. And he said he's in Thailand where there's a lot of vegan influencers, and he says that they're regularly sort of not really vegan. I mean, they sort of pretend they are online, but they're not. Did you see? Is there a fair bit of that stuff going on, or is that just people sour grapes?
Yeah. Okay. So first question, yes. So when I first actually started to speak out about my story, which did take me like a little over 6 months. Like it was so great. I sound like such a coward, I'm sure, but honestly, like from some of the stuff that I heard back in the backlash, and like the negativity did affect me. And I'm sorry, as many people as they say, like don't you shouldn't care what people think. When you have like 5,000 people telling you you're a murderer, you're a bad person, you need to go to hell, like I was nervous for the first time ever to even post a steak on my stories. Like, I mean, I was scared of what people are going to say, but it's like, one thing led to another. And I really started to be like, screw this. I'm going to speak my story. And when I started to do that, I had a lot, actually I had a lot. I now have a lot of former clients that were vegan that are my clients again doing this, that didn't feel good. And they ended up coming back and they're doing this now and they're freaking loving it. I also had a lot of people. I had this one girl who told me that when she went vegan, her hair started to break off. She showed me pictures of when she went vegan until like to after. She had beautiful hair that started to break off completely. She said her teeth were chipping. Her nails were like completely breaking and brittle. She had no energy. Like I was just hearing like stories are much more, I guess, things were happening to people that were more, I feel like, impactful than even the things that I went through. Because for me, yes, it was more of an imbalance, but like I didn't feel it in such a way. And I had a guy tell me that same thing happened to him, like his teeth, like I hear a lot about like hair, nails, teeth just being brittle, like falling out, skin being, either breaking out or just feeling super low energy. When the whole vegan movement is like, oh, like you're eating live food, like you're eating plants, you're eating the plants that you're meant to eat that are like alive, and so you're supposed to feel so vibrant. And people were, actually connecting with my story, and some of the things I was hearing were much worse than me. And then a lot of people also said that they just have not been, they've been nervous to speak about this to their other vegan friends or anything because of how the community reacts. Because it's not an individual thing, like, look what happened to me, this is why unfortunately I can no longer be vegan. It's, you are now an enemy to the community. So it's like, they don't see it as, hey, maybe I can open my heart and my eyes to what happened. But I mean, there were a few that did understand. Let me let me not condemn the whole community. There were a few vegans that, that did say to me, okay, whatever works for you, I wish that didn't happen, I wish you didn't, I wish you stuck it out, I wish you did this or that, but however, I understand and I'm sorry what you're dealing with. So there were a few, but I guess the negative kind of overshadowed the positive. And funny, you talk about people that say they were vegan and they weren't. So I'm not gonna name any names because this person's huge on social media, and he put vegan on his bio and quote unquote came up with a vegan protein line, from his supplement, from his company. And we all went out to dinner and he was having cheese and he was having fish, and I'm like, wait, how are you vegan? Like, that's not, cheese is not vegan. Like, maybe you're a pescatarian, but like, I know there's that whole movement, I don't know. Yeah. So I'm sure, and I have a feeling that there are vegans out there that are still saying they're 100% vegan, because I even had people tell me that, why don't you keep your online vegan coaching as a vegan coach and do whatever you want to do on the side? People are like, you already built this, you have all these clients, you have this following, you have this brand, why don't you just keep it? And if you eat meat on the side, you eat meat on the side, And I was like, but I can't, like, it like completely made me fake and authentic. And I'm like, how am I promoting a diet that I was imbalanced on and working with people and still telling them eat, tofu and Beyond Meat, and oh God, I just couldn't. So I was rather, I was like, okay, I'd rather lose my clients and have to rebuild than pretend, because I just couldn't do that.
Yeah, that's a tough situation to be in, I suppose. I mean, there's, like I said, there's if you make your living that way, and we talk about that, it's hard to get someone to change their views when they make their living on that. Do you what advice, I mean, because, and it seems like veganism is particularly common among females. I mean, we see
Mm-hmm.
that, I mean, more females than males are vegan. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. Is there something you tell? Because I mean, there's a lot of girls, and I've got daughters, my little daughters, and I've got one that's, 12, and the other one that's going to be 10. And, they're going to be getting this pressure as they start to care about their body image. And there's some eating disorders that certainly can occur with young women and young girls. And some of that, some people just kind of put veganism on top of that. It kind of becomes an eating disorder. But what advice do you have for, young women that are like thinking about, hey, I want to go vegan to save the planet and save animals? What are your thoughts on that?
So the first thing I would say is do the research. Like, that's the one thing that I didn't do, is I didn't research both sides. I went straight into the rabbit hole. And I feel like you should have an open, if even if you're considering it, first really realize why, and then have the point of view to do both, to research why and then why not. Because I think that if I was to really, if I from the beginning said, you know what, before I completely change my life, like, because that's what you basically do, you completely change your life. Let me make sure that what this is saying is completely true. let me see if someone else is saying something different, or there's people that are actually, you know, that aren't feeling better doing this. And if I was to do that, I have a feeling that I probably wouldn't have jumped the gun so fast. And also, one of the big reasons as a woman and why I went vegan, and this is kind of hard for me to admit, was because I wanted to stay thin. And I think that there are a lot of female vegan influencers that it's almost like, I remember seeing a vegan influencer before I jumped into the whole entire thing, and she posted a before and after with me, after me, and her waist was so much smaller as a vegan. And I'm like, wow, look at that. Not only are you saving animals, you're also staying thin. And she made this post where it's like, without any effort, like my body is just so lean. And you know, unfortunately, I was an online, like I was a personal trainer and fitness coach, and getting kind of at that point like sucked into the little like body image, and I wanted to feel really good and look really good. And I thought, you know, I mean, it was like, not only am I going to look great, I'm going to be saving the planet, I'm going to be part of something bigger. You know, I'm going to be part of a community that's going to accept me, that I could actually like feel like I'm a part of something and make a difference. So it all started with like this seed in my head, like, okay, this is the thing, this is the way to go. I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to look pretty, I'm going to look, you know, I'm going to stay thin. And then on top of everything else, it was like, and then on top of that, oh, look at that, I am a good person now, you know. Oh, look at that, like I'm saving the world. Oh, look at that, like these people are telling me I'm amazing because I'm saving the world, the planet. And you know, so I literally would tell like any young girl, just ask, like just have an open mind, to not completely get sucked in, to have the question on each side. Okay, this person is saying that, but could they be, is this true for everyone? Like, could this be something that could not work for someone else? Like, just to have the open mind to be able to not completely fall down a rabbit hole. Because that's the one thing I think for me, I think that's what's happened with Game Changers, because I just had a friend that is also a fitness coach. She is so fit, she's so smart, watched the Game Changers, went vegan within a day or two. You know, like change her profile to now she's vegan, she's a vegan, I don't know, like, and it's like I'm seeing her go through the same thing I did. Like a single documentary that was so well made just completely changed her whole entire mind of what she's been doing for years. And she's so fit, she has so much muscle that she did not build as a vegan. You know, this is, her body is healthy, strong, because she's been doing something that's worked for her for all this time. So now it's like, now she just went vegan, but her bio says she's a vegan athlete, whatever it is, that has only been vegan for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. A girl who's young is going to go on her page and see, wow, I want to look like her. And it's like, but that's, you know, she didn't build this being vegan. So it's like, ask yourself those questions, because social media shows one side of things. And now, like literally now that I see that, I'm like, it's easy to say social media is so easy to look and be like, wow, that person is telling the truth. Because it could be so convincing, or you just don't know their whole entire story. And I think that's what's happening with women. You know, they see a healthy girl, or a girl that's fit, and she's vegan and she's promoting it, and she's most of the time, you know, so spiritual, and now, you know, you're meditating and yogi, and you're so, you know, you're so good. Like that's what women, like I feel like vegan women kind of portray. And you know, a young girl looks at that, I feel like, and she's not gonna say, like, she's not gonna usually say how long, why. They'll be like, I just want to be that. And so it's like, just make sure you take a step back and ask, like, like, just because their bios is vegan, just because this, just because that, like, has it always been this way? Like, just research, just, I don't know. I mean, I know it's so hard to say for a young girl, because I feel like young girls, you know, who wants to sit on Google and be like, is this really right for me? But I don't know. It's difficult.
Yeah, I think the danger lies in, watching a movie and then deciding you're going to change your whole life based on one single film. And I think, unfortunately, that's what does seem to happen.
Mm,
Hopefully, as we see more and more films coming out from the other perspective, that said, you can, if you're, and I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to, reduce animal suffering. I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I mean, there's other ways to do that, and there's probably better ways to do that
mm-hmm,
than going vegan, which often leads to your own personal suffering. And some people do
mm-hmm.
okay with that. Um, do you, I mean, were you at some point, because I know you said you started out eating junk food. Did you ever gravitate? Because I know there's, every time we see like, oh, ex-vegan influencer goes, whatever, omnivore, carnivore, keto, whatever, we always hear that, well, they just weren't doing the vegan right. Were you, there's people like Michael Greger, Garth Davis, I don't know, McDougall, and some of these other ones that will claim that this is a balanced way to do this. And did you follow any of those guys? Did you try to do it their way at some point?
I read How Not to Die, the whole book. I saw one of your posts actually that made me kind of laugh. Because when you look at Dr. Greger, I'm like, is he really, like, even his out, like the way he looks and his teeth and everything, I'm like, is he really the walking example of health? Now that I have opened my damn eyes to all of it. But yeah, I mean, I when I actually wanted to do it right, because like I said, the first 3 months I was just like a happy vegan. I was like, I'm gonna just enjoy being vegan. I'm gonna, just like, I thought I was, like, I was doing a great thing for the planet. So once I really started to dive in again, like, I noticed that now that I do research on more of, keto, carnivore, and I really like how things impact our bodies. And I just noticed that I know there are some hardcore keto, the keto police, hardcore carnivores, but it is much more open-minded than veganism. Like, the vegan propaganda is the perception is so one-sided and not much based, not based on much science, but it's so well written, and it's so easy to close your mind to the other stuff because of the way that the vegan stuff is actually put out there. Like How Not to Die. Like, I mean, just the title of the book itself, it's like, wow, like I want to know how to eat the best for my life. And so I followed all of those doctors. I mean, I like I said, I had someone tell me, they were like, you probably just weren't, someone was like, you probably just you weren't doing it right. Or why didn't you go to a doctor and figure out what it was? And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I took so many supplements because I didn't want to be deficient in anything, that I almost, now that I think about it, the amount of supplements I took, how is veganism the ultimate diet for humanity if I am supplementing with so much crap on a daily basis just to make sure that I'm feeling like I'm filling in the gaps? And like the amino acid profile, like I had to make sure that like to pair foods in order to get the full amino acid profile. Like, unless I was eating a ton of tofu and a ton of soy products, I mean, I had to get protein shakes, that had the amino acid profile that I needed as a vegan, as an athlete, and to be able to kind of recover and stuff like that. So it, yeah, I don't know. I had a lot of that. It was just, it was, I don't know. It was like, like I said, I even wrote something like that. I'm like, it doesn't matter what I say at this point, what my reason was. Someone is going to tell me that I could have done it differently. I could have done this. I could have eaten this. I could have waited a little bit longer. Maybe it was just whatever it was. Oh, people love to blame it on my competition. But I'm like, I prepped for 12 weeks. 12 weeks. And I was already pretty fit. I didn't prep half a year. I prepped for 12 weeks. My calories were from 2,200 that dropped down to about 1,200, maybe like 2 weeks prior to actually stepping on stage. So I never put my body through anything crazy. So I love when people are like, oh, it's just a competition. And I'm like, well, okay, so that explains 3 months out of the 3 years, but what about the whole other time, So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's fair enough. What is your goal at this point? What do you hope to do with your, I guess, with your social media? I mean, are you still just trying to help people get healthy, or what's the story there?
So because of how I've identified so much with veganism in the past, I told yes, my social media is, I'm a cyclical keto fitness coach because that works for me. But now at this point, I'm like, I am sharing my story, and if anyone wants to speak to me about my coaching, like I feel like I've gotten more clients that way because I've just been sharing my story than if I was pushing something on people. Like when I was vegan, when I was online coach, I felt like I was doing much more sales strategies. I was really pushing it. I was really trying so hard to get people, on board. Like I was always like, oh, like I need to teach this, show this. And now things just come easy. It's just like, I feel like because it works and I don't have to work so hard at it. And because it shows in my energy, it shows in my body, it shows in the foods I eat, and how I'm not calculating macros forever now. Like more people see, and actually the people that have followed me when I was a vegan actually stuck around and are still around, have told me that like I'm just consistent. Like I feel like when I was a vegan coach too, like I've had these moments where I would just I had moments where I would have these binging episodes, and I would it would be like this emotional thing that I would close up to and like go off social media for a few days or whatever. And now I'm just most days are great days and I just share it. And so, yeah, I have clients that I coach, that I'm just teaching basically what works for you. Most of them are keto carnivore. They love it. There's a few that are doing cyclical. A lot of them just love just pure keto. They will try cyclical and just not for them. And it is more to me, I'm like, you do have to be pretty much, an athlete to do it, because in order for it to really work, you want to be able to, burn through that glycogen. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I feel like I've tapped into like a superpower. It's just, things are just like, for better lack of word, they're just easier. They're easier. And I feel like I finally my body's working with me and not against me. Like I'm able to actually pay attention to like what I need, whether I used to use so many stimulants to work out, and now I have so much energy that it's crazy. Like when I think about how much pre-workout I used to consume, just a lot. Like I don't really drink either. I mean, I'll have like a drink once in the blue moon. I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I've tapped into a superpower, and it shows. And I feel like that's really that's what I'm doing now. It's if you want to, if you want to try it, then I will definitely help. And it's much easier because I'm no longer giving you a supplement list. I'm no longer like, here's your vegan diet. And also at the same time, here's what you need to supplement with. Ugh, that's awful.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, Daria, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been a really interesting sort of discussion. Can you tell people where to find you and how to get a hold of you if they want to?
Yes. So all of my social media outlets are Daria Deptula, but Instagram handle is Daria.Deptula. I do have some links on my Instagram. I don't actually have I have a ClickFunnels, which is a pretty long actual link, but that's in my Instagram. So I always send people to my Instagram, and I have a Facebook page, but yeah, it's Daria Deptula or Daria.Deptula.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much. It's been wonderful. I wish you the best of luck. We're actually, where are you located? Just out of curiosity. I don't know what part of the world you're in. Are you in US or
Miami.
Miami? Okay. So hopefully things in Miami are not too crazy.
We went from Corona to riots to now the hurricane season. So
yeah, gosh, it's gonna be. This has been a strange year. Anyway, hopefully things calm down. So anyway, all right. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. We'll see a lot of you folks back tomorrow. I wish you the best of luck, Daria, and thank you for coming in. And feel free to stop in at any time. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care now. Bye bye, guys.
Bye.